They have their fingers on the pulse of the city of Hartford.
Jonathan Small and Stan McCauley have interviewed just about every city politician on Hartford's public access TV, and they join us this morning on Face the State. Thank you for joining us. And
We've been guests as well.
Right. Yes. And I imagine that there's no shortage of news, especially now.
Well, excuse me, Suzanne, it's always good, interesting news, and it's a pleasure to have both of you on my program. I think it's last year I had you on.
Well, yeah, we've both been on it over the time to talk about politics and
politics.
It's like all things Hartford. This has been a tough year, and the city is really trying to avoid bankruptcy. How do you feel that the city will accomplish that, and are you feeling good about that or not?
Well, I'm not feeling too good about not getting at the root of the problem. I think they're going to try to fix the problem towards the oversight board as an alternative to bankruptcy, but the city of Hartford still could fall into bankruptcy if it's not corrected the right way. $40 million is not the total amount of money that Mayor Luke Bronin and the city really needed. I believe it was $80 million, so they're still short on that part of the money.
As you had all your guests coming through this year, was the specter of bankruptcy looming over every interview? Because everyone was talking about it, like bankruptcy, bankruptcy.
Well, I mean, you know, not really. It would come up every once in a while, but it took so long for anything to actually come to pass. I know Bob Killian was saying that if it was up to him, he'd have done this right in the beginning, as opposed to keep threatening. But I think the city had to be seen as every option had been exhausted. So it seemed to me like there was a willful effort to make the city look bad and maybe even worse than it was, so that you can then justify bankruptcy.
Well, I think the council itself was divided. I mean, there were some who felt that bankruptcy should never be an option. Some felt that it was okay, that would be the best thing to clean up the mess and move forward. We did see some new developments with the Hartford Police. They have now come to the table and agreed on concessions, along with the Hartford firefighters and I believe the professional union. Mm-hmm. Do you think that you'll see more unions follow suit?
Well, I think now that you know, we're going to have this financial oversight board, I'm not quite sure to what extent they have powers to discharge contractual obligations, but the specter is definitely there, and so people may now feel that it's in their best interest to come and cut a deal before the deal is cut for them.
Jonathan, based on your interviews, what do you think the biggest problem facing Hartford is today?
Well, there's one big problem or many different problems that combines to one big problem. I think the mill rate is still too high. The economic development of the grand list is still too low. We are just not generating enough revenue in the city of Hartford to really sustain itself towards a long-term process.
It's the highest mill rate in the state. Mm-hmm. I covered the Oversight Board in Waterbury when they went through that process, and they raised it to 99 mills in 1 year. I mean, it's almost unfathomable. I mean, what do you think would happen in Hartford if they raised the mill rate, even temporarily?
I think you start to see an exodus. I think it would ultimately be counterproductive. They've just got to do something else.
One of the big stories that broke in the last month was that Mayor Bronin is now interested in running for governor. Mm-hmm. What do you gentlemen think about that?
I've never been a fan of the good Mayor Bronin. I was very supportive of Pedro Segarra, and I think that he needs to, at the very least, fix Hartford. I mean, he's been mayor for 2 years, first time he's been elected to any position, and I think it's premature, but that's just my personal opinion.
Well, I kind of agree with it the same way. I think he should finish out his term. I mean, if he has this deep desire to run for governor, he needs to accomplish and show that he's done an excellent job as a mayor. And I think he's just trying to do somewhat of a quick job to jump in towards the mayorship and then now try to get himself out of being mayor to run to governor. So I think he's just acting a little bit too premature, like Stan had just mentioned. But there's a strong chance that he could end up being the Democratic nominee for governor. So maybe he feels confident that he could become governor of the
Yeah,
state
he's
of
been
Connecticut.
criticized by some of our viewers for, saying he was committed to fixing the city. And look, and Hartford's a mess. Now, he didn't create that mess, but he certainly made the promise to try to fix it.
Well, one thing he did mention that I kind of agree with, I think Hartford has to become a regional city, like a major city, regionalize the surrounding towns. If you look at other cities, I've interviewed people, Indianapolis went towards that process. You have Raleigh, North Carolina. I think Hartford lacks what you call that magnet type of city and the vibrancy that I think you need for a capital city. And I know many surrounding towns are dead set against regionalizing the capital city into Hartford, but I think Hartford needs something unique to kind of bring itself back.
Stan, you can have the final word. We got 30 seconds left.
I think what Hartford needs is to, it needs to, there's two Hartfords, and we got to find a way to bring them together. The people of Hartford, I don't think, are being well served by the interests that are kind of controlling the city right now.
Stan McCauley, Jonathan Small, we thank you so much for being in the program. You can watch them on Hartford Public Access, interviewing everybody.
Thank you, and we wish you a very happy holiday and a happy new year.
Same to you.
Thank you, Dennis and Susan.
Thanks for coming on. That will do it for this morning on Faces Day. Thanks for tuning in.